And now it will just take me a minute to get Facebook lit up. Okay, clicking the go live button. Three, two, one. Hey, 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 it's another groovy day. And most of you already know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's Life Mastery Radio Day, of course, where Jackie and I get to hang out and we bring on some great thought leaders, authors, speakers, coaches that are helping people on their very own life mastery journey, giving them the tools and everything else that they might need to have a masterful life. And that's what this show is all about. It's also another groovy day because I make it that way. When I get up in the morning, I decide it's going to be a groovy day. And guess what? My day turns out pretty groovy. And I've had a pretty challenging week, trust me. But it's all been groovy. I'm grooving right along. I want to remind our listeners that today's show page is at www.lifemasterradio.net. You can, or .com. You can go there and the links are already there for our guest. We'll have some more links. I think she has a quarterly magazine she puts out and all kinds of good stuff for you to follow along. And as always, my co-host is here, smiling big as always. Hi, Jackie.
Hey, everybody. Great to see you.
You got a big, let's see, you're the TEDx speaker manager. Is that right?
Event manager.
Event manager. And
Yeah.
that's coming up this Saturday. So if you're in the Seattle area or the local area around here, it's in Woodinville. And
it's actually in Monroe. It's TEDx Woodinville, but it's actually in Monroe, which isn't too far from Woodinville. But.
No, it's about 15 miles, I think. And yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Woodinville 10X in Monroe, Washington.
Well, have you ever been to the Wagner Performing Arts Center there in Monroe?
I have not.
I haven't either, but evidently it's a pretty amazing venue. So I have not had time to go check it out yet, but I will be there tomorrow for dress rehearsal and get to see it for the first time. But it's a 600-seat auditorium, and then there's a gym behind the auditorium, and it's supposed to be a really fabulous venue. So looking forward to that.
Are you scoping it out for your Arnie?
I don't know. I don't know what kind of events they have there. I'll have to find that out when I'm there.
For you that don't know, Jackie's husband manages four or five cover bands.
No, double that.
10?
It's like eight or nine. Yeah.
8 or 9. I was watching a special the other night about the Hollies. It was the whole, from when they began to when they split up and Graham Nash went on to Crosby, Stills and Nash, but it was very interesting. But the whole time I'm thinking, I said, I wonder why Arnie doesn't have a Hollies cover band, because I think he's got all the talent to do it.
Well, were they more from the 50s or were they 60s? So
60s up to the early 70s, and then Graham Nash split off and went to Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Yeah.
But they still kept playing without him. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty.
How are things at the Speed Feed Lead Project? You got lots of stuff cooking. You're getting ready for a TEDx. My goodness. When are you going to put on TEDx's yourself?
You know what? I'm waiting for my TEDx to be published. It's like every day I go check. They have a YouTube channel. TEDx has a YouTube channel. That's where they publish all the videos. And they don't really give you a heads up. They just say it could be a few months or more. What I've learned is that there is a committee of 4 people that run the TEDx.
Wow.
So that's who, when you apply to get a license to do a TEDx, you go through those 4 people. But they're also the same 4 people who get all of the recorded speeches from all over the world, every TEDx event all over the world, and then they go through, make sure that there's no rules broken through the speeches or through the process of the event itself, and edit for sound, whatever, and then they publish. And so you can imagine how
The
long this
backlog.
might take. And so every day I check, is it out yet? Is it out yet? And I don't, and most of the people I know who've given TEDx's, they say, yeah, there's no warning. All of a sudden, just one day it's there.
Well, we'll keep our eye out.
I'm waiting for that to happen. As soon as I do, I'm going to have a big watch party. We'll get everybody online, and then we'll watch it on YouTube live and get everybody's thoughts and feelings about it. But this week is this Saturday. I'm the event manager for this event, and it's nice because it's local, and I can help out a lot. And
Meet
and
people,
then I'm
network.
actually coaching some speakers, some TEDx speakers now for a December event back in San Diego. So what most people don't know is that when you apply and are accepted as a TEDx speaker, you're actually given a coach. It's a volunteer position for the coach, but you get several sessions with this coach that helps you to get your speech ready for the stage. So I am now a TEDx coach for a San Diego event, and it's all about climate change and things like that. So all the speakers are talking about that particular subject from their own perspective. So it's interesting. I'm coaching 2 speakers, adult speakers, and 1 10-year-old, which is going to be really cool.
Right up your alley. For those that don't know, Jackie is a great speaking coach. So if you have a speech or a presentation coming up and you want some words of wisdom, I would go to Jackie. So you better too.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got packages for everybody, and that's what I love doing and really excited about.
I can tell you get this big smile on your face when you're talking about it. And on with the show, have I mentioned that you can go to our website and sign up for Jackie's newsletter? She puts it out once a week, and it highlights who's been on the show and who's coming on the show, and of course the blog post about who's been on the show. So it's pretty cool. You can stay up to date with all things life mastery. We also have a YouTube channel. There's like 300 shows up there on topics, a plethora of different topics that are designed for you and your very own life master journey. Take the tools, put them in your kit. If you need them down the road, then you got them. Or just like, was it 2 weeks ago, we had a meditation coach on, and both Jackie and I were so ingrained in that we started his 14-week program. So it's kind of cool.
That's
I had
right.
to go out and buy a candle because the first week you have to just stare at a candle. I didn't have a candle.
That's funny. Who knew, right? I
I had a-
actually had a candle, but wasn't sure I had matches, so I did have to go look for matches.
That's funny. Okay, on with the show. I think today's guest is Jackie's guest, so that means she has an introduction. Take it away, Jackie.
Oh, I'm delighted. Thank you, Todd. Yes, our guest today is Dr. Leslie Rogers. She is the founder and the CEO of Mental Health Talk LLC. She's also the publisher of Mental Health Talk magazine and the founder of the Men's Suffer Too campaign. Now, her magazine, Mental Health Talk, is a well-rounded publication that seeks to bridge gaps between mental health and medical health. We're probably going to talk about that a little bit today. So Dr. Rogers completed 25 years of service with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Yes, the FBI.
Wow, I didn't know that part.
As an intelligence analyst and employee assistance program coordinator for the Counterterrorism Division. Dr. Rogers is a former psychologist with the Fayetteville VA Medical Center, where she specialized in treating veterans with a wide range of mental health concerns that include complex trauma histories. And just recently, she's opened her own private practice in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I think another city too. So she's got 2 locations where you can see her there in North Carolina. So Dr. Leslie Rogers, it is delightful to have you with us today. Welcome to Life Mastery Radio.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, and it's a pleasure to be here.
So I'm guessing you're familiar with Quantico.
I am. I lived there for several months.
Wow.
That's the FBI's training base and some other things too. So that's kind of cool. I didn't know that. That's a big feather in your cap.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that about me.
What was that like, and how long was your stint there?
Well, I was there for 25 years. It was wonderful. It was, a career
Yeah.
after high school, not immediately after high school, but a career after high school. I think that that was my first experience to the professional world, and it groomed me into who I am today.
Mm.
Mhm.
Being
How has that helped you learning counterterrorism techniques and then dealing with veterans who have been in the field and actually dealt with, terrorism or war situations, combat, that kind of thing? Do you feel like that's a plus for you?
Yeah, I think it was again a rewarding experience. Working in a counterterrorism division, you're immersed into this world of intelligence, so you have an idea of what's going on, and you see the anxieties and we working in counterterrorism division. You're like on the go, oh, go, 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 right?
Mhm.
Um, you see the struggles that a lot of persons go through, such as when you talk about mental health, talk about substance use, and even suicide, right?
okay.
So being a part of that world and seeing how stressful it can be, um, it's really challenging sometimes, especially some of the work that you do, and you have to
Oh,
try
that's
to
it.
deviate around what to take home with you and what to leave at work, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
Yeah.
that's
that's a
difficult.
tough part, huh? Is
It is.
leaving that behind. The barn door closes at whatever 4 p.m. and now you got to open another one into your home, and you
Mhm.
don't want them to bleed together.
Right. So yeah, it's the nature of the job. It's just trying to figure out a healthy way to create balance in your life. And sometimes it's challenging, not even for law enforcement, but for us in our normal worlds and our
Right.
day-to-day activities anyway.
Well, and you said in the pre-show that you specialize in working with men who have trauma and probably PTSD, all of that whole gamut. Why is it so appealing to you that you work with men? Do you because of that experience, is that you have a better understanding, maybe?
No, that's an excellent question. So I was the counterterrorism division's employee assistance coordinator, where I worked with, a diverse multitude of persons.
Sure.
However, it wasn't until I left, um, obtained my doctorate and started working at the VA, that I started working with men and doing groups for men. And, it was such, and I use this word often, I kind of repeat myself, it was such a rewarding experience because with men, I often refer to men or first responders or children as unique populations. And what I mean by that as unique is you might have to do a modified approach to therapy when you work with them because there's stigmas, right? Stigmas associated with men, and with these stigmas are resistances to share and disclose, in fear of what you're going to think about me. Being a man, each man defines what it is to be a man differently,
Right.
right? Based on culture, based on how you're raised, based on expectations, responsibilities. All that has to do is how you define yourself as being a man, right? And then that's going to influence what you share and what you don't share, right? And so I find that with trauma, when working with men, I found that when one person, everybody in the room would wait for validation. And men hate when I say that because they say, oh, I don't need to be validated. But
Yeah.
they do. When you're in a group and you're talking about trauma, you're waiting for that one person to step up and share.
Mm.
It's when that one person steps up and share that you just validated the entire group, and then others will start sharing, right? So I just think it's a really beautiful experience and outcome to help men navigate through the world around what men should look like and what the expectations are of men are, and et cetera. And I just love it. I love what I do, and it's been a great success.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a changing world.
Yeah.
yeah. I wonder if and I appreciate what you do, and I wonder the reason why men don't often seek help for themselves as much as women often do,
Right.
is because they are, especially in the VA situation, these are men that had served in the armed services, possibly within combat itself. And so their mindset is serve others, protect others,
Mhm.
don't think of self, right? And so then it's almost a complete mindset then to start having to worry about themselves. And as you say, there's stigma about that. Well, what's going to come out?
Right.
When I think about myself, there's a lot of stuff in there that
Yeah.
I don't share because it's scary to share it. So is that some of what you deal with when it comes to men's mental health? Is this idea that I care for others and I don't necessarily care for
Yeah, for
myself?
myself.
Right. So you bring up a good point. So we're talking about two things right here. We're talking about collectively men as a whole, and then we're talking about subsets of populations of men, right? So men in general, there's stigmas around men, right? What men should look like, how they should behave, how we as women should be treated by men, etc. Right? But then you have subsets such as when you talk about the VA, veterans, or military population. When you go into the military, you're there to do a job, right? And a lot of people feel that, how can I do my job if I'm falling apart, right? If I'm talking about mental health and mental illnesses, and, and I hate to say this, but, suicides are high, amongst these populations, right? But, the stigmas that go around, you can't do your job effectively if you're struggling with a mental illness, right? So, the idea of, and this isn't only with military populations, it's with law enforcement as a whole, right?
Right.
How can I do my job effectively? You're carrying weapons, and how can I do my job effectively if I'm dealing with a mental illness, right? How can I fight a war when I'm dealing with a mental illness? But a lot of folks are struggling, and so what happens when they come back home, when they return back home, now they have to navigate around that idea of, we don't speak about this, right? And they have to find ways to kind of help them grow or help them recover through the experiences that they've gone through.
And group therapy is a great starting point, isn't it? I mean,
it is,
I've
individual
been in a
and
couple
group
groups.
therapy. It is individual and group therapy. So group therapy is a lot of times when you have anxiety or PTSD or something like that, groups are an excellent approach to recovery. You have a lot of times when I see people individually, a step down approach is group. After they finish with me, after they're terminate or they're finished with my therapy, then we refer out to groups. And I think that's an excellent
it's a great healing opportunity, because I think the biggest point from my experience anyway is that guy's been through the same thing I am, and I can relate to his story. And so I now feel like I can tell my story. It might take a couple of meetings, but I'll get the nerve up, right, to start talking about it. And the healing, that is just the first step.
So let me tell you, groups allow you to groups validate your experiences. It normalizes your experiences, and it allows you to be authentic. It allows you to be vulnerability. Vulnerability is sometimes really difficult, right? It allows you to be vulnerable, because then you get into this circle where you start to trust, and trust is a huge thing in trauma, right? You start to trust your peers that's around you, and then you become vulnerable. Let me tell you, you cry in front of each other. You share things that, it's a beautiful thing. And so, I am a supporter of and an advocate of groups.
Excellent. So what are some of the things that you're seeing? You've been in this for a long time. So are you seeing trends right now of different types of mental illness that are increasing in number?
Well, I don't want to quote right now because I don't have stats in front of me.
Okay.
However, we know that, depression is high and anxiety is high. Anxiety, I think, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I have this on my stats, anxiety is the most prescribed medication. It's for anxiety, and that's around the world, right?
Yeah.
And then, but depression is high. Depression, I think, is the most diagnosed disorder, is depression. But anxiety is the most prescribed disorder.
For medication.
Yeah. So, and so when you talk about gender differences and talk about men versus women, I wonder, men are underreported when it comes to depression because they present externally.
That was going to be my next question, is how do they present that differently?
Yeah, men may, present as with external symptoms such as anger, irritability. Whereas women, we more have more internalized symptoms, right? We can talk about our symptoms more, crying, not eating, not sleeping, suicidal, etc., suicidal ideations, possibly, potentially. But I think with men, because of that stigma with reporting, they're less likely to report symptoms as we do as women. So, yeah.
Let alone go to the doctor, right?
Right, yeah, mental health, right? Yeah, you have the stigmas around medical health providers and mental health, but really stigmas around mental health. And that's why my goal is to bridge those gaps between mental health and medical health, because we spread awareness around it, then it can kind of hopefully reduce those stigmas and get the treatment that they need, that we all need, right?
I commend you. That's really heartfelt work. I mean, your need to help others in need is, that's a big part of why we're here and why we're in this life. I mean, we can talk about gossip all we want, but if you're not helping people better their lives, I think there's great satisfaction in that. And am I wrong?
And it feels good. I think it feels good when you're able to reflect and unwind. You're able to feel good holistically. You reduce a lot of stressors potentially, but it's a learning experience, and it takes practice. It's not something that you can just jump into and do overnight. I tell people when they come in to see me, hey, listen, you'll probably start feeling horrible before you feel better, because you're about to start dumping and talking about
Live those memories. Yeah.
But then remember that the end result is going to be amazing, because you're going to start processing through all that stuff you've been running from for years.
Yeah.
It improves relationships, and it improves relationships because it helps you become better communicators. Right? It helps you to now communicate better to your loved ones, to your children. It models for your children, right? We need to start modeling now for our children, and let children know that it's okay to not be okay, and you can, speak about what you're feeling, and teaching them those speaking words.
Yeah.
Teach them now while they're young, so they won't grow up like us and think that it's not okay to talk about things, right?
Yeah, I think for me, my life majorly changed when I started to explore the feminine side. Not that I'm feminine, but I went to some events that were women only, and I got invited to them. I was the only guy in the room, but understanding those principles and waking that up inside of myself totally opened up the doors for the rest of my life. And I think I was probably in my mid 40s, and it was huge. It was amazing. I would say more guys need to go to those type of events, but they won't.
Because of the stigma.
Why is that? I was going to say, why is that? Why do you think that they won't?
Well, I'll tell you for sure, because back in those days, I was a he-man. I was a man's man and all of that. And the only reason I was going to these events was to fill up my black book. But I got swandoozled into understanding the feminine side. True story. That was the whole deal.
But do you believe that men can still be a man's man and explore the feminine side?
Sure. But understanding that feminine side and how that works, I think in Jewish traditions, they say that a man doesn't come to a true spiritual awakening until he discovers who Sophia is. And another word for Sophia is the feminine side of God. So they've known about this for eons, and yet there is the stigma still around of men, just being all inside. They don't have to share. They don't, talk about their feelings. They just, they're in cruise mode, and it's really not good.
I think it's important for us to be aware of what culture says, and how we're impacted to culture and childhood rearing, and how our parents, raised us. I often say, in a Black community, the men in my family, they had to take care of home. They had to financially secure a home. So they were security. There were so many intersectionalities of a man in our family that you just didn't have time to sit back and tell you all my feelings. Oh, I'm feeling sad today. I'm scared today. I can't make the bills today. So what am I going to do? I'm anxious. I'm nervous. I'm putting all these words to it. You just couldn't do that, right? Because then again, being a man is a part of your identity. And you have to understand what that identity is in order for you to kind of navigate around and get to your feminine side, right? And that's a scary thing to do sometimes for a lot of people, for a lot of men.
I was tricked into it, but
Yeah.
I got it, right? So we need to trick more men. I went up to the event leader and I said, look, she announced this event. And I said, look, if you notice a person that looks like me wearing a wig at this event, don't blow my cover. And she chuckled. She thought that was funny. She goes, no, Todd, I want you to come. You be here. And there was probably 200 women in there. And I was the only, well, there was one other guy, but he was with his wife reading a book. So I went through all the processes, and I'm telling you, Dr. Rogers, it woke me up big time.
Good for you.
Dr. Rogers, do you think that a lot of the societal norms for men and labels of what men are supposed to be, is that part of the reason that anxiety and depression are on the rise? Is it this constant battle or no?
Well, I think that, when you talk about cultural norms and stigmas and things like that, I think that we're going into a shift. I mean, I think that we're starting to see more men in therapy than we did before. And I think that more men are starting to open up. I think that society has to change too. For example, if I go into a training and they do statistics on sexual abuse victims, right? And when you pull up the statistics, all you see on there is women. Then if I was a man, why would I want to share? We have to start by putting stats up there as men, for men as well. Men are experiencing sexual trauma. So why aren't they really reflected in the stats? One reason is because of underreporting.
Right.
But then put the ones that's reporting in the stats. I don't want to walk into a room, into a training and see, talk about MST, military sexual trauma, in the VA, military sexual trauma, and then all I see is stats on women.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's very true, because there were, for years and years, young boys went through these like scouting programs, and there was rampant abuse going on, and no reporting was happening though.
Years and
years and years and years. And these men, those young boys now are all men. And so a lot of this, they're starting to finally open up about this, but there's a lot of shame and guilt that they've carried for years and years and years.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about anxiety, when COVID happened, anxiety went on the rise, right? I think that even myself, we were anxious, right? Kids became, anxiety in kids.
We didn't know. We had no idea.
Even suicide ramped up a little bit during COVID, right? So the anxiety and anxiety is just the fear of unknowing, not knowing what's to come, what's going to happen, right?
What's next?
So when you talk about depression and anxiety, I think it depends on the circumstance, depends on the circumstance that you're in, and our coping resources that we have to deal with those circumstances, right? And that's what, therapy is. It teaches you the coping resources, to come up with coping resources to help you navigate through adverse events.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with our youth. I just read an article just a couple days ago about the attraction for young men just to have an AI girlfriend.
Oh, right? No, really?
Yeah, just to have a girlfriend in their phone that they can choose to talk to and converse with, and the AI picks up on things, and it's like having a girlfriend, and then they just shut up. They're not socializing like well, when we grew up, right? There's no social activity.
Don't date. Young people don't date anymore.
Yeah, socialization is really important for our youth, and you're right, with phones and computers and everything. They don't even need to go outside anymore. But I have to say this: when COVID happened, I think we really realized how important school was, because a lot of children struggle from being at home. Schools for some kids are support systems, right? Schools for some kids are their source of where they get food or other things, but they were good support systems. And when COVID shut everything down, a lot of children struggle with anxiety, and depression. So I would always tell parents, you know, make sure you check in with your children and understanding what they're feeling, because when they're in school, the schools are talking about it, the kids are talking about it, right? So you have to talk to your kids as well, even about what's going on in the world today. You have to check in with your children and ask, how are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you feeling? What are you feeling? And then normalize that by saying, you know, mommy feels a bit anxious too. This is how I'm feeling. And normalize those discussions so they'll know that they can come to you and talk to you about it, because they're going to their peers and talking to their peers about it, and you don't know what their peers
Or
are telling
seeing it on the internet. That's just got to be a
Exactly. Yes.
huge mind blower for young
Yeah.
people to see that kind of stuff, and then you know, lose their personal hope, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what that defeats, is hope and a positive outlook?
Yeah. It's you know, it's it is. It's like, you know, and it deems us helpless because, you know, you study trying to figure out ways to help children recover, come through certain situations. You know, just with the school shootings alone, right?
Yeah.
You know, some kids don't want to go to school because, you know, in fear, you know, what's going to happen to him at school. And I always say, I'm glad my son just turned 30. Well, he'll be 31 in December. And I thank God every day that I was able to get through those school years, because I would be a basket case with the number of school shootings that's happening today.
Well, I think that's an interesting point too, because many of my young mentees, my students, during the pandemic, shared with me how they didn't feel like they could tell their parents how they were feeling, the frustration or the sadness or the anxiety or the worry, because they knew their parents were already feeling it, and they didn't want to add to the burden of mom and dad. So they basically stayed quiet, and they just didn't say anything. And so I think that you know, a lot of young people are feeling that way, and then it just gets worse and worse because they're not able to express it, and then their imagination starts over time, and they imagine these things that are very, very unlikely of happening, but because they don't have a way to release it and talk to somebody about it, or they don't choose to do so. I think that's why the suicide rates went so high. I think the kids just felt hopeless. There wasn't enough life experience for them to understand this is going to come to an end.
Yeah, their
and
brains,
and there'll be some normalcy again,
their
right?
brains.
Not only with children, let me tell you, adults were committing suicide too.
Yes.
But let me tell you, that's why it's important, and I will stress this again, you know, normalize discussions in your home. Start talking to your children and letting them know that it's a safe space. Create a safe space within your home for your children to talk to you about, and make it a family thing. You know, have discussions once a week, right? Check in with your children and see how they're doing, and let them tell you about their day at school, or how school is going, how not school is going, right?
But you have to be willing to not react judgmentally, right? You did what? You know, that those kinds of things that will shut kids up. If what they say is going to invoke drama of some sort. And so I think that's a hard thing for parents too, is they do care about their kids, and so they do realize they need to open up to them, but then what happens is when the child starts to share, they overreact to it, and then that can be scary for the kids too. So I appreciate so much that you're talking about conversations, because that's exactly what I preach. You know, talk to your kids and help them talk to you better, that kind of thing. So yeah,
Communication, it opens those up, and it doesn't, if you're communicating like you're describing, Dr. Rogers, you're not holding it inside, and you know, you're trying to understand what other people think about what's going on, and trying to determine, you know, how you feel about it based on what others are saying, or their direct. Otherwise, you're just dazed and confused.
Yeah. Another tidbit I'll give really quickly, if you guys want to move on, is, you know, one thing I find that's really helpful for parents and adults is, it's something I use, and it might sound silly, but it's really not. It's something called an emotions checklist. And I use it for adults too. because sometimes we find it hard to come up with those emotion words and we don't know how to express ourselves. So then it manifests in like anxiety or anger or irritability and other negative emotions. Learning different ways to express yourself and teach your children. Have an emotions checklist. It's called an emotions checklist. There are tons of emotions on there where you can give it to your child and say, hey, take this in a room and look at it and come back and let me know what you're feeling, what your experience is. You can even use it for yourself to tell your child, I was looking at this list and this is how I'm feeling. And this is the word that I'm going to use to describe how I'm feeling, because this actually stimulates discussion as well. And it helps them communicate what they're feeling.
I got in trouble with one of those lists one time. I was in group. I was an inpatient for to be an alcoholic, and I was in group, and we got one of those pieces of paper, and we were supposed to circle what was going on with us that day. And my word wasn't on there. So I hand wrote it in and I turned the paper in. And so she's in front of the group and we're going through them one by one. And she says, Todd, you can't do that. And I said, well, I'm feeling groovy and that word isn't on that list. So I don't know what to tell you. And she really scolded me for
if that's the
staying
word
outside the box.
If that's the word, if the word isn't on there, have the child write it on there. It's okay.
Yeah, she didn't like
Dr.
it.
Rogers will let you do that, Todd.
I felt like
Sure
I
would.
was telling the truth, so I just went with it. It was quite funny.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. When I was in therapy too for my own childhood trauma, that was one of the things that my therapist offered to me as well, was a list of emotions, because sometimes it was hard to know.
Yeah.
Like you say, what you're feeling, because it's all gobbledygook in there, and it's hard to kind of decide what am I feeling right now? What does that mean to feel that way? So I think that's important.
Yeah, and understanding that anger is a natural emotion. It's okay to feel anger because it's natural. We all become angry, right? We all become angry. It's just a matter of understanding how we're going to respond to that anger.
And not stewing in it, right? We all have those angry reactions, but if you just pause for a second and let that emotion flow through and realize that doesn't have to be the truth.
Yeah.
I was always taught that anger was a secondary emotion, that there was always one or two
Something
other
else.
emotions that preceded it and then turned into anger. And I don't know if that's still true in psychological circles today, but
I teach anger management, and you do. I think that we feel, you can tell when you're about to become angry. I believe that we have physiological sensations. Like for me, when I become angry, my eyes might water, or I might even feel like this sensation like running up my body. It's something in my face, something I feel internally to let me know, oh, this person is really making me angry. Right? So it's when you are feeling these physiological sensations, and this is what I teach in anger management, when you're feeling these cognitive sensations, these thoughts that come into your mind before you get angry, right? These physiological sensations. What is your body feeling, when you're becoming angry? When you're so exactly. So when you're able to put a word to it and label it, then you can communicate with whoever you're speaking with or whoever you're becoming angry with. I'm starting to walk away now. That's when you can make that decision as to how you're going to respond. I'm going to walk away for a second because I'm starting to become angry. Let me walk away and think about why you're making me angry, so I can come back and tell you later why you're making me angry. So then you can come back and communicate. Usually when people become angry, it's disrespect. You feel disrespectful
Or betrayed.
You feel like you're taking my power and control away. It infringes on safety. Right. It's something. I have these 5 tenets that I use that, that you can know how to communicate when you're becoming angry. But when you become angry, something is happening that's interfering with your balance, with your safe space. Right. And then, so I think that communication is great, and it's important to learn how to communicate, because then people will listen, I believe.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Rogers, I understand you have a weekly meditation session. Is that something that, earlier when we were talking about helping men to get in touch more with their feelings and their feminine sort of side, Does meditation help them to do that? Because I don't know a lot of men. I know some men who meditate, of course, more and more, but it isn't necessarily a natural thing that they take too quickly. So does your meditation session help them to become more, I don't know, aligned with something bigger than themselves?
Excellent question. It's for everyone. It's called Mindfulness Meditation and Relaxation. It's on Sundays at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let me tell you, when I was in a VA, I had a mindfulness meditation group for all men, like 10 men in that group, right?
Mm.
And then I decided to offer it again in the communities during COVID, and I had like 20 people on Zoom, and yes, men, because you want to come and you want to learn ways to kind of digress and reflect on past experiences, reflect on current experiences, reflect on your emotions, and understand that, I don't have to run away from them. This is a safe space. I can sit with it, right? Yes, men come, women come. Again, it's every Sunday at 7:00 p.m. I was asked to do it again. So I've decided to do it. I chose Sundays to start the week off. So I was asked to do it
That's very
twice,
cool.
Sundays and Fridays to end the week. That's just too much for me. So Sundays to start the week, we'll reset, we'll relax, we'll meditate on things, and then we'll get the week started, and then we'll come back the next week and reset again. I'm going to do this through the holidays because I find that the holidays are especially sometimes anxiety triggering for many folks. There's been a lot of losses. There are a lot of losses, and there will be losses during this time, right? That's powerful, isn't it? There will be losses. So, we need to kind of learn ways to love ourselves without judgment and allowing ourselves to feel all of these negative emotions, right? And replace them with positive emotions, but learn how to sit with them and understand where they're coming from, so that we could, and it's a holistic healing approach. And I love it. I practice. It was hard for me at first because I think it's kind of silly at first. And I'm sure other people feel that Dr. Raj, this is silly. But then once you start practicing and getting into it, it works. It's evidence-based to reduce anxiety and improve mood. And, it helps you, really become one with yourself and understanding all of those negative sensations you feel in your body when you're faced with a certain, situation, or understand, it's just, I love it. It's called mindfulness meditation and relaxation. Yeah.
So am I hearing you say then that meditation is a part of either managing or healing from mental illness?
So it's a part of managing distress. Meditation research shows that it has a lot of medical advantages too, for medical care, mindfulness meditation. And I'm going to teach that on Sunday. This Sunday is the first day, the 15th, again at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. But I'm going to teach the many benefits of meditation, and there's many. There's health benefits. There's mental health benefits.
Chemistry, basic chemistry in our brains.
Imagine if you're having a panic attack, right? And you're able to do some relaxation, mindfulness meditation, relaxation to reduce the panic attacks. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to stop panic attacks from coming. Once you have a panic attack, the risk of you having another one is high, right? But what I'm saying is you can decrease the intensity of the panic attack, right?
Just by recognizing it and maybe going into a mindfulness meditation.
Exactly.
I used to, back when I was first taught this concept and being angry or feeling, panicked, because I'm a small business owner and with 15 employees, you just never know when somebody's going to cut their finger off. No, I'm just kidding. But there's times when you just get a little pissed off, right? And so I was taught to hit Control Alt Delete twice in my mind and reboot. If you remember back when computers first came out, they'd get locked up and all goofy, and you'd hit Control Alt Delete twice and just reboot. And that worked for me for years. It still works today if I find myself getting a little squeamish, or I just close my eyes, mentally hit Control Alt Delete twice, and then I just wait for the reboot.
But there's a lot of healthy strategies that you can use.
Oh yeah,
I like
but
that.
it's
I like that a lot.
whatever works for you, right?
There's different strategies for each person. Some, like for me, I have panic attacks. I remember driving down the highway for my first time, and it was when I was in a doctoral program. It was horrible because the doctoral program was one of the hardest things that I've ever in my life had to go through. And that was my first time experiencing panic attacks. So it's not fun, but I don't like listening to sounds like water. I mean, like white noise and stuff like that. I don't like that. But
Really?
then there may be something else. Yeah, there may be, I like listening to like waterfalls and water falling and dripping and things of that sort. But there may be something different for you all. Maybe you like listening to instrumental music, or maybe you like listening to just the sound of your feet hitting the ground, or your hands in sand at the beach. It's different for everyone, right? Whatever works for you to achieve the goal, the ultimate goal of reducing, stress, anxiety, and improving overall mood.
Dr. Rogers, if someone wanted to join you for your meditation session, how would they do that?
Yeah, they will go to my website, www.mentalhealthtalk.live, LIVE. Go to the bookstore and it's posted on there. And it's just $25.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think they'll find your magazine there as well, right? So you want to tell us about your magazine? I think it's published quarterly. What can do you need a subscription for that? Tell us about all the details
I will tell you. So I'll tell you. So these are my magazines. They're for a year and they're being considered for Barnes and Noble. I'm told that I'm the only one with a magazine out here like this. You see me on the cover. This was an accident. My bonus daughter, I had someone that was supposed to be on the cover, and she got sick, couldn't come. So my bonus daughter took pictures of me and we threw it on a magazine.
Nice. It was meant to be.
And then on this cover this is a spring edition. This is Allison Williams. She's a R&B jazz soloist. She talks about her relationship with the late Phyllis Hyman, who committed suicide some years ago. Wonderful story in here. So they're sold quarterly, 4 magazines a year. We're about to come out with the next magazines next year. We're coming out with 2 more this year. They're amazing. They have tons of good information in there, well-rounded publication where we have spreading awareness around kids' mental health. My newest column, though, I want to let you guys know, is Silent Hallways, which is where we as professionals, mental health and medical professionals, come and disclose our very own experiences with mental health. Yeah, it's really powerful.
Silent Hallways?
It's called Silent Hallways.
Is that, what did you say it was? Is a podcast or?
No, it's behind. Sounds like one, doesn't it? No, it's one of the columns in the magazine.
Got it. Okay.
And the newest column is United Heroes, which is amazing. It's a column with inside the magazine that sheds light on first responders. So first responders write in this column. This is what it looks like.
Nice.
And they write in this column, law enforcement, first responders, about mental health, and anything awareness like homeless veteran programs, any community resources goes in this program. And one more thing I'll show you guys is that we have a resource listing in here. So once you read through all of this stuff and get all this good awareness, you get to the back of the magazine and say, hey, I think I should become engaged in therapy. Well, my goal is to have people listed here, licensed practitioners from all over the US, where if you're in New York and say, let me see if someone is in here from New York. Yep, there's someone. Let me reach out to this person and get in.
That's very cool.
So it's an awesome magazine. I'm proud. I have about 50 plus writers under my belt. And I'm just so, blessed and honored and to have such a great team to come out with this publication, because it's really good. And I hope that, if you guys read it, you guys love it as well as much as I do.
We'll for sure check it out. And I think the link will be in our newsletter. And maybe we can put that link. I don't know if was the link in your announcement post, Jackie?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the link should be there on www.lifemasteryradio.com. Go there and you can find out more. And of course, it will be coming out in the newsletter that Jackie will be creating in the next day or so. So keep an eye out for that. You can sign up for it if you want to. Go find it. Go find it on lifemasteryradio.com. Oh my goodness, Dr. Rogers, we just have about 6 or 7 minutes left. Is there anything we didn't cover? We talked about a broad range of things, but is there something else that comes to mind that you would like to share?
Yeah. The only thing I want to say is I really think this is important to say, to the listeners, please check in, guys. There's a lot of stuff in the world going on today. Check in with your emotions, check in with how you're feeling, check in with your children, and talk about what's going on. There's a lot of emotions going on in the world, especially with the two wars in the two countries, Israel and Palestine, and our own very own experience that we have here in the US, right? Then the political war. It's just so much stuff going on that can potentially cause so much anxiety and stress and low mood and irritability, anger, and all these different types of emotions. Recognize your emotions and understand. And sometimes if you have to walk away, turn the TV off and walk away. I have to set boundaries in your lives, guys. Boundaries for yourselves, boundaries for your children. Set boundaries. Only watch, news. Don't watch news every day. Because with me, that stuff gets inside my spirit and it just creates so much discord, right? Try to set boundaries in your lives, healthy boundaries. They may be different for every one of you guys, but set boundaries that will work for you in your home to reduce anxiety and create intact, family environment, and work on that. But I just had to say that there's so much going on. Make sure you check yourselves.
Something I'm noticing. I'm going through medical oncology and radiation oncology treatment for the cancer on my tongue. And when I go into each one of these sessions, treatment plans, or talk to the doctor, the first question out of their mouth, I'm finding this so interesting, is how are you feeling today? Right? So, and there's a little questionnaire that they give you that kind of does a quickie on your mental health and mental state. And I really thought that was cool that they're caring more about that before they start what they're supposed to do about how is the patient doing today. I was really impressed.
Excellent, because you have to recognize that there are emotional changes that you're going to go through. This is a process that you're going through, Todd, and you have to recognize that there may be emotional transitions that you're going to go through as well. And
I'm looking for the gift. That's what I'm doing. Everywhere I go, I'm looking for that gift somewhere. It's got to be there.
Yeah.
Well, and our state of mental health affects our physical wellness too.
Totally.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I interrupted you. I apologize, but I just said our mental health affects our physical wellness as well.
Absolutely. There's overlapping, mental health symptoms overlap with medical symptoms, and medical symptoms overlap with mental health symptoms. And, I think that we as providers should show compassion to the people that we're seeing. Sometimes we get overwhelmed too, and you have people in and out, in and out, in and out. But I think that you all appreciate, and what I'm hearing from you, Todd, is that you appreciate that there is some compassion there and some, and
interactivity. And, I'm not just a big old meat bag walking through the door that needs to get processed, right? It's just, I was very impressed, or I have been very impressed over the last couple of weeks, just in and out of the hospital so many times and getting treated and tests and all of this stuff. That was the first question that always came out. How are you feeling today? That's pretty cool.
I'm glad to hear that.
Oh my goodness, ladies, we have about 4 minutes left. Any takeaways, Jackie?
Oh, Dr. Rogers, you're so knowledgeable and helpful to talk with, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I think men are an overlooked part of society when it comes to mental health, so I do appreciate that. and children as well. I really appreciate that you brought up conversations because that is, and Todd too, you reiterated that when you say, they always ask me, how are you feeling today? Well, that's a conversation, right? It's a conversation starter. Conversation is everything. And I think it is the key to mental health issues is we have to be willing to ask people how they're doing, and then we've got to be willing to share what we're really
Validate.
feeling.
Validation is, and Dr.
Absolutely.
Rogers talked about that a couple times. It's to validate people. They need to be validated.
Because that's how we're going to be able to release what we're feeling, sharing it with someone. I know that there's just a lot of healing that happens just every time that you're able to speak out about something. And then it helps to grow understanding in other people too about how they might help you and ways that you can be supported. So I appreciate that you talk about that. And I want you to, again, tell everybody how to contact you and where they can find all this information that we've talked about. So state your website one more time and what's there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is www.mentalhealthtalk.live, LIVE. There's a ton of resources there. There's a bookstore there with books in there, self-help books around reducing anxiety and reducing anxiety for children. It's in there that sells out pretty quickly. So, go to the bookstore, browse through and see if there's something in there for you. There's something in there for veterans, for military, from first responders, law enforcement, children. There's something in there for everyone. So, take a look, read about me while you're there and my history. And I am practicing in North Carolina, the state of North Carolina, Fayetteville, North Carolina, and Durham, North Carolina on the weekends. So yeah, if you're in the area and needs somebody to talk to, stop on by. But
Nice.
that's my contact information. I would love to. And we always accept articles in the magazine.
Oh, for the magazine.
Yes, this magazine is written in such a way that it from personal and professional perspectives. So it's not that jargon like you see in articles where you have citations and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's from personal and professional perspective. So if
Cool.
anyone wants to join our team and become a writer, you can write once or as much as you want. Let me know, reach out to me, and I will we can meet and talk about that.
Excellent. Nice.
I commend the work that you're doing. And my last question was going to be, when's the book coming out? But you produce a book 4 times a year.
I know. I've been asked, Forbes just reached out to me the other day and asked me to do a book. I've had 3-4 people ask me to do a book, and I wouldn't know where to start.
I have a good coach for you.
Well, send them my way, because
Coach.
I may do a self-help book maybe, but wait, Jackie, is that what you're saying?
Nope,
No, Todd's got a friend who he can help you with.
My girlfriend is Coach Debbie, and that's what she
send her
does.
my way, because I'd like to do Forbes just reached out to me the other day, and I'm like, now that you reached out to me, I have to consider it. So maybe I'll consider doing a self-help book. I really would like to do something with mindfulness meditation. So if your girlfriend is in that field and she could help me come up with some ideas.
Oh, totally. She's a student of, do you know who Alan Cohen is? He's the author. He's written for Hay House for many, many years. He's got like 24 books out there.
Yeah.
But she's a student of his.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
my information. Yeah. Thank you.
And then when you're ready to get your message out on the stage, that's when you call me.
Come back. Talk to Jack.
Okay.
But we got you in the machine now. Right. We're gonna Life Mastery Radio you.
Jackie, I'm ready to get on the stage. I need some help though.
Awesome. Well, I'm here for you.
Oh my goodness. Thanks again, Dr. Rogers, and namaste, my friend. That's about all we have time for today. My hope is that you enjoyed the show, gave you a couple tools maybe, or at least some resources that you can go and check out. Check out our website at www.lifemasteryradio.com and Jackie's blog. Lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it's all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.